Okay. So we are live. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Good to see you here again. Yesterday, we spent our session on the slides for the Lakehouse in Microsoft Fabric. We went through the whole picture here, and we gave all the necessary explanations. So let me spend 2 minutes reminding you where we left off, because everything we do today sits directly on top of it. We started from the two classic ways of storing analytical data. On one side, the data warehouse data lives in relational tables. It has a fixed schema, and we query it with SQL. It's reliable, it's well understood, and it has been the backbone of business intelligence for decades. On the other side, the data lake. Data lives as files. We do not force a schema on it when we store it. And it handles the awkward things, the huge volumes, the many different formats, the data arriving faster than anyone can model it in advance. And we said that each of those has something the other one lacks. The warehouse gives us structure and SQL, but it's rigid and it does not love unstructured data. The lake gives us flexibility and cheap storage. But a folder full of files is not something a business analyst can query. So the lakehouse is the answer to that. We store the data as files in the lake, and then we lay a relational schema over those files as a metadata layer, so that the same data can be read as SQL tables. Files underneath, tables on top, one copy of the data. We also explained the two pieces of fabric that make this work. First is OneLake, the single storage layer that every fabric workspace writes into, so that we are not building yet another silo per team. The second is Delta Lake, the open table format that gives our files a transaction log. So a folder of files starts behaving like a prepared table. Consistent reads, versions, updates that either complete or do not happen at all. That was the theory. Today we build it. Everything that was a box on a slide yesterday is going to be something we click on, something that appears on the screen in about half an hour of real work. Two quick things before we start. First, if you have a fabric trial or capacity available, open it now and follow along with me. You will learn far more by clicking than by watching. If you do not have one today, that's completely fine. Watch this session and repeat it afterwards. The recording will be there, and every step is in the lab document. Second, put your questions in the chat as they occur to you. I will pick them up as we go, and we have time at the end for the rest. Let me share my screen. So I would like to describe the shape of next half hour, so you always know where we are. So first, we create a workspace. A workspace is the container. It's where our fabric items live. It's what we share with colleagues, and it's what carries the capacity that pays for the compute. Nothing exists in Fabric without a workspace to hold it. Inside the workspace, we create a lakehouse. A lakehouse is the item that gives us storage plus a table catalog. When it appears, we will look at the two areas it gives us, a files area and a tables area. Understanding the difference between those two folders is genuinely the single most important idea in this session. So we will spend real time on it. Then we get some data in. We will upload a CSV file of sales orders into the files area. That's our raw landing zone. Then we will take that file and load it into a table. And we will look at what Fabric actually creates on disk. When we do that, because it's not what most people expect. And finally, we query it twice. Once by writing SQL, which is what a data engineer or analyst with a database background would do, and once with a visual query, which is drag and drop. No code for people who come from a Power BI and Power Query background. Same data, same answer, two doors into it. This is it. 4 steps. Workspace, Lakehouse, data in and data out, and build it. Let me close this one. Okay, so I would like to go to Fabric homepage. Say app.powerbi.com. I'm using my credentials to sign in. And here I'm changing to Fabric. So this is the Fabric homepage. On the left, we have the navigation rail. And this is where we will spend the whole session. The icon I want first is this one, workspaces. Now, before I create one, let me be clear about what a workspace actually is, because people coming from Power BI will recognize the word and people coming from a database background will not. A workspace is three things at once. It's a folder. It holds our items, our lakehouses, our notebooks, our reports. It's a security boundary. We grant people access to a workspace, and that access flows down to what is inside it. And it's a billing boundary. The workspace is attached to a capacity, and that capacity is the compute we are paying for. When you run a query in a minute, that capacity is what runs it. I'm giving it a name that tells what it is and when I made it. Please do the same. In a real tenant, you will end up with dozens of these. And the workspace called test that somebody created 8 months ago and nobody dares delete is a genuine problem in every organization. So I have worked with, name it like you will have to explain it to someone later. New workspace. Say, create Lakehouse. So for description, lab purpose only. Okay. And now here is the part that gets people out. And it's why we open the advanced section rather than just clicking apply. So I'm selecting trial here because that's what I have. If your organization has both a Fabric capacity, you will see it by name in this list, and you could pick that instead. If you see nothing here except Pro, that means there is no Fabric capacity available to you in this tenant. That's the one thing you cannot fix from this dialog, and it's an administrator conversation. And there it is. So completely empty, which is exactly right. A workspace is a container, and we have not put anything in it yet. Let's change that. Okay. So now we are inside our new workspace, and we want to put our first item in it. So on the left, we go to create. If we don't see it, we click on ellipsis and say create, right? And so if you do not see create pin it here, so actually I explained we can click on ellipsis and we can pin it. So you will find it the sidebar is customizable. So yours may not look identical to mine. Sorry. Okay. Um, this page is worth of moment of your attention. Everything Fabric can make is on this one page, grouped by workload. Data engineering, so data factory, data science, data warehouse, databases, real-time intelligence, so on and so forth. So this is the whole product laid out in front of you. And over the course of this series, we're going to come back here the most of these sections. Today we want data engineering and inside Lakehouse. Okay, I will give it a name. Small piece of practical advice. Stick to letters, numbers, and underscores in fabric item names and start with a letter. Spaces and punctuation will cause you friction later when you are referring to these objects in code. And it costs nothing to avoid them now. And now we wait. So let's give a name. And here I'm selecting my location. Okay. And let me create. And now maybe we are going to wait for a while. It takes something under a minute. While it provisions, let me tell you what's actually being created because it's more than one thing. Fabric is creating three artifacts here, and you will see all three in your workspace afterwards. The first is the lakehouse itself. This is my lakehouse. Okay, the storage and the table catalog. The second is a SQL Analytics endpoint, this one. And then uh, this is actually automatically generated and which lets us query those tables with SQL. We will use that one later in this session. And the third one is a default semantic model, which is what Power BI will connect to when we get to building reports later in the course. So one click, three objects. That's a fabric pattern you will see. Again, the platform tends to give you the surrounding pieces you are going to need rather than making you create them out one at a time. So here we are. This pane on the left is Lakehouse Explorer, and it has two folders, Tables one and Files one. So okay, I want to spend a couple of minutes on these two because if you understand the difference between them, you understand what a lake house is. The top one is tables. Anything in here is a table. In the sense you already know the word, it has columns, it has data types, and we can run a SQL select against it. In a Fabric Lake house, these tables are Delta Lake tables. Delta Lake is an open source format, and it's not something Microsoft invented and looked up. And it's the same format that Apache Spark uses everywhere. That matters. Your data is not trapped in a proprietary box. The bottom one is files. This is raw storage in OneLake. Anything at all can go in here, a CSV, a JSON file, a folder of images, a compressed archive from an FTP draw. Fabric does not care and it does not apply any schema to it. It's a file system. So think of it as a journey from bottom to top. Data lands in files as it arrives, in whatever shape it arrives. Then we clean it, we shape it, and we promote it upward into tables, where it becomes something people can query. Files is the loading dock, tables is the shop floor, and that's exactly the path we are going to walk in the next 15 minutes. One more thing about files, we are here. You can also create shortcut in this folder, which point at data that lives somewhere else entirely without copying it. We will look at that in a few minutes. And right now, of course, both folders are empty. Let's get some data in. Oh my God. So here we need data. Now, in a real project, nobody uploads files by hand. So let me be honest about that before we do exactly that. In production, you have a few prepare options. You can build a pipeline that copies data on a schedule from a source system, a database, an API, a storage account. You can build a data flow gen tool, which is the visual Power Query experience. If you prefer to shape data with a graphical tool, or you can write Spark code in a notebook that pulls and transforms data directly. We will meet all of those later in this course. But for getting a small file in quickly, for a demo, for a proof of concept, for exactly the situation we are in right now, uploading from our computer is the simplest thing that works. And there is no shame in it. So that is what we are doing. First, we are going to create a subfolder. So let me create that subfolder in front of files on ellipsis. I'm saying new subfolder. And I'm going to give a name. So let's say sales data and create. So now a word on why I'm bothering with a folder at all instead of dumping the file at the root. Because in, 6 months, this files area will not have one file in it. It will have several hundred from several sources at several stages of processing. Folder discipline on day one is free. Folder discipline in month six is a migration project. Many teams organize this area in layers. Raw data as it landed, were then cleaned, then created, and you will hear that called a bronze, silver, and gold structure. So we are keeping it simple today, but that's the idea you are building towards. So now on the data folder, same three dot menu, right? Let's upload files. And here I'm going to select my CSV format file. I have shared the necessary links with you in the YouTube chat box. So you can, just download that file, or you can do it from Microsoft Learn Lab documentation. So where you can find all the necessary codes and also source files. Say upload, and it's going to be uploaded, right? Okay. So, so I'm going to close this one. And I'm going to click on sales data. And here I can see my sales data that I uploaded a little bit earlier, right? So here I would like to, you know, just give a little bit info, like two observations. So first, this is a preview of files and not a query of a table. I cannot filter this. I cannot aggregate this. I cannot join it to anything. It's a look, the contents of a text file. Second, and more important, right now, every one of these columns is just text. CSV file has no idea that quantity is number and order date is date. That information does not exist in the file. So if we want to do arithmetic and quantity and unit price, we do that is the entire point. We need this data in a table with real data types, which is exactly what we are going to do in a moment. Okay, so now I'm going to click on files Uh, Actually, I would like to talk a little bit about shortcuts that I will show you how to create, where to create shortcuts. And before we turn that file, this one, into table, so I'm going to just show you how to deal with shortcuts. So we just uploaded a file, which means we made a copy of it. And there is now our copy here. And whatever the original was over there, and copies have a cost that's not really about storage. Storage is cheap. The cost is that the moment you copy data, your own asynchronization problem, you own. Someone updates the source, and your copy is quietly wrong until the next refresh. Multiply that across a dozen data sets, and you have a data quality problem that nobody can trace. So Fabric gives us shortcuts. On the files folder, three dots and new shortcut. Okay. And look at this list. We can point at another location inside OneLake, for example. So another lake house, right? In another workspace owned by another team becomes visible in our Explorer without a single byte being copied. We can point at Azure Data Lake storage. Let me close and do it once again. Click shortcut, and here we can see the full list. Okay, we can point at Amazon S3. We can point at other external sources too. The data stays exactly where it is, under its owner's control, and it simply appears in our lakehouse as though it were ours. Think about what that means for the pattern most organizations are stuck in. The finance team has data. The sales team wants it. So somebody builds a copy job. And now there are two versions of truth. And the nightly pipeline nobody wants to own. With a shortcut, there is one version. And sales are reading finances data directly live. I'm going to close this dialog without creating anything. We do not need a shortcut for today's exercise because we already have our file in the format of CSV. But when you go back to your own environment and you find yourself about to copy data from one place in your organizations to another, stop and ask whether a shortcut would do the job instead. Very often it will. Okay, now I'm going to load the file into a table. So we have a file now, we know it, and the file is file for someone writing Spark code, then can read a CSV directly and work with it. But most of the people who need this data are going to write Spark. They want a table. So let's give them one. On the file, three dots, load to tables, load to tables. Actually, I have to select this as data one, right? And new table. So I will call the tables like sales data. Okay. It will be in lowercase, no spaces, instead underscore. Fabric will hold you to sensible naming rules here. So save yourself the argument. Check the file type is set to CSV, right? And check the header setting. Our first row contains column names. This one. Okay. Not data. And if that is set wrong, you will end up with a table. Those columns are called something like C1, C2, C3, and those first row of data is the word item. That's a 5-second check that saves a very confusing, minute. And now, let's say load. Okay. Uh, as Fabric is doing something in the background, that's worth understanding because it's the whole, trick. It's reading our CSV, it's inferring the data types, deciding that quantity is a number, that unit price is a decimal, and so on. And it's writing the data out again in a completely different format. It's not registering our CSV as a table, it's converting it. So there is under tables, we see our sales data table. So if yours has not appeared yet, do not panic and do not reload the whole page. Just go to three dots on the table folder here and just refresh them. Okay. The Explorer does not always catch new objects instantly. That's a display lag, not a failure. Let me select the table. Same data we saw a few minutes ago, but look at the column headers now. Okay. So each column has a data type attached to it. For example, order date is data type. Quantity is a numerical whole number type, right? And that's what changed. It's no longer text that happens to look like numbers. This is typed, structured, and queryable, data. Now, here is the part I really want you to see, and it's the thing that separates people who understand the lakehouse from people who just use one. On the table, three dots, right? View files. So actually here, we see this one, view files, right? Okay. Um, view files. Okay. So because a table in a lakehouse is not a mysterious object hidden inside a database engine, it's files. Let's look at them. Two things here. First, these data files. Okay. Um, they're not CSV anymore. They are Parquet files, right? Parquet files. Parquet is a columnar format. Instead of storing row after row, it stores each column together. That means when we run a query that only counts 3 columns out of 9, the engine physically reads only those 3. It's also compressed, and it compresses very well because values within a single column tend to be similar. That's why analytical queries over Parquet are dramatically faster than over CSV, and it costs us nothing. Fabric did the conversation for us. And the second, this folder, underscore delta log. This is the transaction log. And this is what makes it a delta table rather than just a pile of Parquet files. Every change to this table gets recorded in here as a transaction. That gives us three things we simply do not get from files in a folder. We get atomicity. A write either lands completely or not at all. So nobody even reads a half-finished load. We get consistency for readers. Someone querying this table while a load is running sees the previous complete version, never a mixture. And we get history because the log knows what the table looked like at every previous version. We can travel back in time and query the table as it was yesterday or before a bad load, and we can undo mistakes without restoring a backup. That's the Lakehouse in one, screen. Files in open formats, sitting in storage, you control, behaving like a proper transactional tables because of a log. No proprietary engine holding the data hostage. If you take one image away from today, take this one, right? Okay, now I'm going to query the table with just SQL. So let me click on this. Okay, we have a table. Let's ask it a question. So top right here of the page, there is a mode selector. And right now we know we see analyze data with nothing more. And here I'm going to select SQL Analytics endpoint. Remember, this From a few minutes ago, we created the Lakehouse. Fabric created this endpoint for us automatically. We did not set up a database. We did not configure a server. We did not open a firewall port. It has been sitting there since the moment the lakehouse existed, waiting for a table to appear. And what it gives us is a T-SQL surface over our delta table. So nobody in your organization who knows SQL, and that's a lot of people, can query the data with skills they already have. They do not need to learn Spark. They do not need to know what Parquet is. They connect and they write select. One important thing about this endpoint while it loads, it's read-only. You can select, you can join, you can aggregate, you can create views. You cannot insert, you cannot update or delete through here. Data gets into a lakehouse table through Spark, through pipelines, through data flows, or through the load we just did, not through this query window. If you want a fully writable SQL surface, that's a warehouse, and this is our next topic. Next, SQL query. And let's write something that answers a real business question. So how much revenue did each product generate? So we select the item and we sum quantity multiplied by unit price, and we call that revenue. From sales grouped by item because we want one row per product, and ordered by revenue descending because the first thing anyone wants to know is what is at the top. And note what I just did there without commenting on it. I multiplied two columns together. I could not have done that against a CSV because in a CSV, those were text. The type inference we watched what happened during the load is what makes this line of SQL possible. That's not a small detail. That's the whole reason we made a table. So, what I'm just going to do, say new SQL, and here we can type our, just say, uh, I'm sorry, we can type our codes. Now I'm going to type my code. Just give me a couple of seconds. So let's let me copy and paste my code here. So here, this is my code, and I'm going to say run, right? So just pay attention as here it's sales. So if I change it sales data, it will give me the necessary results, right? Okay. So this is what I'm just, getting, right? Okay, right. So here we see our answer, revenue by product and highest first. So take a second and appreciate the distance we have covered. 20 minutes ago, that this was a text file on my laptop, and it's now sitting in cloud storage in an open columnar format with a transaction log queryable in SQL by everyone in the organization with permission, and we did not install anything, provision anything, and configure a server. And that's the value proposition of the platform in one sentence. And you have just watched all of it happen, right? So now I'm going to build a visual query. Actually, I can go on, just, type some, uh, you know, other, say, queries. So just I'm keeping them out right now. So let's write one more. So here, what I'm just going to do, I'm going to define my top 10 customers by revenue. So for this purpose, I'm just going to say, let me, yeah, here, new SQL query, Control V. Let me select this sales data one and say run. And it's going to give me my customers, top customers, 10 customers, with their revenue that they generated. Okay. So, of course, we can write a lot of queries. Just I'm going to do one more, like revenue by month. So let me do it. This one also. New SQL query. Control V here. I'm just going to select my source data and let's run it. And here we can see order year, order month, and revenue. So now I'm going to type my last code, actually apply my last code. It's going to be related to orders and line items. And new SQL query, Control V, and sales data. Here we are going to select our sales order number. And for each sales order number, let's see what we're going to get. Let's run it. So here we have our sales order numbers and line of items, the number of line of items, right? So this is what we just are going just to get, right? Okay. Okay, now I'm going to do something different that is going to be building a visual query. So here, say visual. Uh, okay, so let's say that one more way is just building a SQL query in a visual way. So from here, I'm selecting new visual query, right? And then let me give some information about this new visual query. Not everyone actually who needs data writes SQL. If your background is Excel and Power BI, just you have probably spent years in Power Query, clicking transformations together, watching the preview update, never writing a line of code. And that skill is genuinely just valuable, and Fabric does not ask you to throw it away. So next to the SQL query option, as we did here, we have, sorry, let me delete this one. We have here new virtual query that actually we have already, open. So what I'm just going to do, I'm going to drag the sales table onto the canvas and immediately we get a preview of the data and the step recorded for us. So here under schemas, I hope under DBO, under tables, we have sales data. Let's drag and drop. So here we can see, this one, right? Okay. This is what we are just, getting. Okay. Right. So what I'm just going to do, so anyone who has used Power Query will recognize exactly what's happening here. Let's answer a different question this time. How many line items are there on each order? In other words, how many different things did each customer buy in one go? So we say manage columns and choose columns. And I only need two of them. Let me unselect, right? So I'm going to select the order number and the order line number, sales order number and sales order line number, and say OK. So I have selected two columns of my whole table. And everything else noise for this question. And this is a genuinely good habit rather than tidiness. The fewer columns you carry through a transformation, the less data has to move. And on a large data set, that difference is not subtle. So then let's go to transform and group by. Okay, so I group by the sales order number because I want one row per order. So let me say sales order number, right? And I'm going to call it line items. And for operation, I'm going to select count distinct values. And here I'm going to select sales order line number and say OK. And there is the answer. One row per order, right? And the number of line items on each one. This order here has the many lines on it, so that customer bought that many different products in a single transaction. Now, the point I want to leave with you, that what we just built produces a query that runs against exactly the same table, through exactly the same endpoint or exactly the same data files as the SQL we wrote 5 minutes ago. And there is no second copy of the data for the visual people. And there is no separate system to maintain. One lakehouse, one copy of the rules, and everybody gets the tool they are fluent in. That's a large part of my organizations adopt this platform. And you have now see both halves of it in the same, session. Okay. So let me go back to my workspace, select create Lakehouse. This is what I created a little bit earlier. So we made a workspace here. This is our container, our security boundary, our capacity. Inside it, we made a lakehouse. We can see it here. And this lakehouse gave us two areas. In files, we have our row CSV exactly as it arrived, sitting in OneLake. In tables, we have the same data promoted into a managed delta table with real data types, stored as Parquet with the transaction log underneath it. And from that one table, we answered two different business questions in two different ways. Revenue by broad product in SQL and line items per order with no code at all. I have already added some other, just codes just to try. SQL, endpoint analytics, same files, two doors. If you followed along, you have all of that in your own tenant right now. If you watched, everything is in the lab document and recording, and it will take you half an hour on your own. One last practical thing, I please do not skip this is, if you are in trial capacity, if you're finished exploring, delete the workspace you created. So let's create it. Delete it from here, workspace settings. And from here, I'm selecting remove this workspace, right? And that removes the lakehouse and the data with it. Two reasons for this. First, a trial capacity is a shared, limited resource, and abundant workspace sit on it. Second, and more importantly, this is habit worth building. Demo and learning artifacts that nobody cleans up, how tenants become unmanageable. Build it, learn from it, delete it. I'm going to keep mine for now. Actually, I'm not going to keep my own. I have already deleted just for demo purpose. Okay, so that closes out, lake houses. Yesterday we did slides and the concept, and today we built it with our own hands, which is exactly the pattern I want us to keep for the rest of this series. And speaking of that pattern, our next topic is analyzing data in a data warehouse. We will do it the same way. First, the slide session, where we take apart from a warehouse is in Fabric, how it differs from the lakehouse we just built, where you should reach for one instead, and how the modeling and coding works. And then straight after the lab, where we built a warehouse, loaded, model it, and query it ourselves. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. All right. So I will tell you now what the interesting question is going to be. So you can start thinking about it. Today we queried our Lakehouse tables with SQL, and it felt exactly like a database, but it was read-only. Next time we get a SQL surface, we can truly write too. So why does Fabric give us both? Where should you choose one over the other? That's what we are going to answer. Bring your questions from today with you. If something did not land, or if it broke in your own environment, write it down and bring it. We'll start the next session with those. Thank you all very much for joining. Thank you for the questions in the chat. Actually, I'm going to check them if there is any, and I will see you in the next one.